Yep.
Okay.
Start recording. So, good afternoon. I'm Wade Gobrecht. I'm the Assistant Director with the York County Planning Commission. I will be providing a general meeting guidelines and protocol, and then turn it over to Felicia Dell, the Director of the York County Planning Commission, and she'll moderate the meeting. This meeting will be recorded and posted at the YCPC website as soon as possible following the meeting. That website URL is www.ycpc.org. By participating in an online meeting, you acknowledge that the meeting is being recorded and you are providing consent to be recorded. Just give you a little overview of how the meeting will flow and expectations during the meeting. Roll call for attendance will be conducted for all board members and staff. Afterwards, all other participants will have an opportunity to announce their name and organization if desired. Each agenda item will be introduced by the moderator. The moderator will ask board members if they have any questions. After members finalize their questions, the public will be asked if there are any comments or questions. For action items, please state your name when commenting or making a motion. The moderator will take a motion and a second. An opportunity will be given for public comment, and then the board members will vote. If you have any questions during the meeting, please raise your hand in Zoom to provide a comment. You will be prompted for your comment by the moderator or host. If you're using your computer, this can be done through the participants dialog box. If you're calling in just with your phone, you dial *9 and that will raise your hand. Some expectations of attendees: please keep yourself muted during the meeting when you're not speaking. This will help limit background noise. To temporarily unmute yourself, press and hold the space bar while talking. If calling through your phone, press *6 to unmute. After you are done speaking, press *6 to mute yourself once again. If a technical problem or other issue should arise, the screen share will be paused until the issue can be addressed. After the issue is addressed, the screen share will resume and the meeting will pick up where we left off. Mr. Chairman, if you would like to open up the December 15th York County Planning Commission meeting, I'll pass it over to Felicia Dell to moderate the meeting.
All right, it's time to start the meeting. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Felicia Dell, the Director of the York County Planning Commission, and I'll be moderating everybody through today's agenda. We'll start with a roll call of the members, starting off with Chairman Walter Kuhl.
Present.
Mary Coble.
Here.
Sean Kenny.
Here.
James Morris.
Here.
Tom Earp.
Here.
Matt Cronister.
Here.
Mike Pritchard. Kevin Clark. And Brian Brenneman has emailed us and said that he has a work conflict and he won't be able to be with us at the meeting today. The other people that I would like to note is we do have our solicitor, Jeffrey Raymeyer of CGA Law, and the meeting is also being recorded for notes by Stephanie Schaefer, our administrative assistant. Did I miss anybody? Did anybody sign on late that I missed? All right. Moving forward, I'll pause now for anybody that's listening in to the meeting from the public who would like to make a comment about something that is not listed on the agenda for later action. The floor would be yours now. If you have a comment, again, not related to an item on the agenda, I'll pause, and if you could say your name and what your comment is, you have the floor. Okay, hearing nobody step forward, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. The minutes were enclosed in the meeting packet that was emailed out to all of the members. Does anybody have any edits or corrections to the minutes or a motion for approval?
I move to approve the minutes of the November 17th meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, I have that it was moved by Mary and seconded by James and Matt at the same time, but I have James recorded. Is that correct?
That's fine with me, yes.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. We'll move on to the communications. In your packet, there was a list of the project review correspondence that we received for the month of December. Does anybody have any questions about the project review correspondence? The other thing I'd like to notice, then moving on to item 4B under acknowledgements, I sent out a newspaper article to everybody on the board about the homeless services that are getting a lot of pressure during the COVID pandemic, and specifically Kelly Bletcher-Tass from our staff, who's presented before the Planning Commission before on the array of homeless programs that we support with funding from the federal and state government, was one of the participants in the newspaper article that I sent out. And then Mary followed up and mentioned that she heard this similar kind of story. I think it was on an NPR news story, and Kelly was quoted, or clips of her remarks were part of that radio story, again, about homeless and the pressure that their homeless services are getting as we go through COVID, and resources are stretched thin and capacity at shelters is limited because of social distancing. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to read the article or might have caught that story, but it was nice exposure for the work that's being done on those programs. Moving on to item 5, the financial report. The financial report was emailed out to the Planning Commission yesterday at the end of the day, along with the final budget. The financial report, as we've mentioned in prior months, that in spite of some of the quirks in the cash flow and the program funding that we've been receiving due to COVID, our overall numbers of where we should be this time of year are a little bit all over the board when you look at the statement of revenue and expenditures. A majority of the expenditures that are inordinately high or inordinately low are largely due to COVID and either numerous expenses to establish a remote work environment for the staff, or are low because we didn't have those activities because we were working remotely. So the numbers are a little funny, but overall, when you look at our revenues and expenditures, our revenues are slightly exceeding our expenditures for the year, and we've been able to maintain a positive cash flow as we go into the end of the calendar year for 2021. The other thing that you'll notice is a lot of the expense checks that we're writing are a lot fewer. There are still staff that are out and about going to various work sites or conducting meal delivery for the homeless programs. There are still some of the typical office expenses, but overall, the expenses are lower than what we anticipated for this time of the year. I would entertain any questions from Planning Commission members about the financial report? Hearing no questions about the financial report.
Alicia,
I
just have one comment, and that's to say we're really fortunate that, I mean, that looks really good. I mean, it looks really good considering the times that we're in, that we're able to show that the kind of balance of revenues and expenditures as we have. I'm pleased. As pleased as you can be with this kind of situation. So good job.
I appreciate that, because one of the things that we always look at is where should we be around this time of the year as we go through, like these are through the month of November. So we have 1 month left. We should be easily 90–95% of the way through the budget. And when you look at our overall revenues, sure, they're down, they're about 80%, but our expenditures are also down, and they're at about a little over 78%. So
we always like when the expenditures are less than the revenues.
Right. So even though we're not at the, the full amount of where we should be overall, I'm glad you said that, because the balance between the revenues and expenditures, even in a little bit of a diminished budget, I feel fortunate as well. So hearing no other comments on the financial report, Mr. Chairman, would you accept the report and direct me to place it in the file for the annual audit?
I would like it placed in the file. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 other items that I wanted to update the Planning Commission on regarding the financial side of the operation. We have a significant upgrade to our accounting software that we're going to be undertaking in the first part of 2021. We're not sure if it's going to be the first quarter or maybe a little bit after the first quarter. But the other piece of that is that it's not just our accounting software, but it's the tailored modules for our timesheets and the PennDOT invoicing that we do on a quarterly basis. So we're working through, what our options are to get some of those tailored programs upgraded so that they work with the new update to the accounting system. And we'll keep you posted on how that, what those options are and how expensive or inexpensive we can get those accomplished. I'll move on to committee reports and look to Mary to see if she has any updates she'd like to provide about the senior initiative.
Thanks, Felicia. Just want to call everyone's attention to the posting. I think you received an email from Stephanie about a webinar that was presented on December 3rd. That was a collaboration with AARP of Pennsylvania, the York County Planning Commission, and Orange Splat, which we spoke of in earlier months. They're a developer, a green developer. They're based in Oregon, but there was a very interesting presentation, and it was to promote different senior housing alternatives and offer municipalities assistance in developing alternative senior housing types. We also previously, back in November, you may recall, and in our staff reports also makes note of the November 6th Zoom call for Municipal Awareness Task Force meeting that highlighted the work being done by the Planning Commission staff and AARP and Embracing Aging. Our website too, if you get a chance to check it out, the York County Planning Commission's Senior Housing Partnership website is continuing to be expanded to add all kinds of data and new interactive maps. So check it out if you haven't had a chance to do so yet. Kurt, do you have anything else?
That was very thorough, Mary. Thanks.
That's all I have. Any questions?
All right.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mary. I just wanted to, as we move on to item 7, the staff reports for December, I did want to just highlight a couple of things. There, you'll see under a number of the sections, a lot of work, again, around CARES Act funding that is being programmed to provide services for the less fortunate in the community. There's also an item called Code Blue. We were awarded a grant that Kelly Bletcher-Tass had applied for establishing a temporary winter shelter for the homeless, because again, if you read the article that Kelly was included in that we mentioned earlier, the capacity of homeless shelters is significantly less because they need to maintain social distancing because of COVID. So the amount of homeless people that are going to be out in the weather is going to be significantly higher. So there was funding to establish temporary winter shelters to create more capacity. So there's been a lot of work around getting CARES Act funding out to the social service organizations that need it, and to provide some of those other backup shelters that will hopefully provide some temporary residence for people that don't have any place else to go. The other thing that we do at this time of the year, and Wade and I have been pretty busy over the last 7 to 10 days, we schedule an annual meeting with each of our division managers to not only do an annual review of performance, but we also review our work plans and look for, what was accomplished, what didn't get accomplished, is it still relevant, does it need to be carried over to the new year, and what do we have coming up in the new year. So I wanted to let you know we've just finished a majority of those meetings as of this morning. Wade and I now have to get together and kind of take in everything that we heard and figure out, what we need to then include on our work plan to keep everybody supported from a management standpoint, and what else we need to do from a special project standpoint. So you'll be seeing a 2021 work plan at the January Planning Commission meeting. And then the other thing that we've been busy, and it's taken a different kind of look because we're in a remote work environment, we've been onboarding our new hires. A couple of months ago, we hired Jamie Stevenson in a new position called the Housing Navigator. We hired Jada Richardson as our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Community Planner, and she began November 30th. And then we also hired onboarded our new Assistant Fiscal Officer, Ariana Cooper, and she started a week and a half ago. So taking on new employees has been a little bit different in a remote work environment, but I think our new hires have, because they were such good hires, they're adapting and everybody's settling in and taking on the new responsibilities really pretty well. So I just wanted to give that update. I don't have anything else on the staff reports unless there's other questions from the Planning Commission. Hearing no other comments or questions, we'll move on to Jeff Raymeyer to provide the solicitor's report.
Thank you, Felicia. Good afternoon, everyone. A few short updates for you. The contract work that I have done in the past continues, and even more so these days, in particular with the added programs and with housing. A lot of what's happening is contracts that were in place, we're taking a look at and enhancing them as we move forward. So I'm getting to work with a number of individuals at the staff level, trying to make the contracts better, and that's been a positive process. I would also indicate that we did on the housing side close a loan for Sparrows Way, so a project involving some low income and other housing that went favorably, and those projects are pretty substantial to close because we are typically in as the second or third level of financing. So it's interesting to see just how much is involved with the process, but Dory and I work very closely to do that. She's very responsive. We keep an eye on what needs to be done, and I do watch her staff in particular diligently reviewing and requiring documents. It's actually very interesting to see. So we did close Sparrows Way last month. I would also indicate that the Master Services Agreement on the agenda, I will recommend approval of, subject to finalizing it, involving my efforts. Tanya, Wade, and Felicia and I have all been through it. I have the final version I'm coordinating with Big on, but the document does have what I think is appropriately fair language for the commission for a technology services type contract. And we did adjust the limitation of liability portion. So if there is a substantial issue from Big, there is the ability for us at the commission to recover if there are damages caused. So I will recommend approval of the Master Services Agreement, which comes up on your agenda next. And since it is the last meeting of the year, I would also thank you for allowing me to continue to serve as solicitor. I do appreciate the opportunity. I do talk about it with others. It is a point of pride for me that I'm involved with the commission because I know just how much you do, and I see a lot of it reaching in other areas of my practice and other areas of the firm. So thank you for the opportunity to serve as your solicitor.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for the
Thank
good
you,
year of
Jeff.
service.
I'm excited for next year too. So thank you.
Moving on then to number 9, unfinished business. Wade, do you have anything that you'd like to share about the proposed electric transmission line?
No, we continue to just be in a waiting period, so nothing new to report this month.
Okay, then, Jeff, this is our big moment to get this master service agreement delivered with a bow on it for Christmas.
Feels good. So again, I would recommend approval. We've spent a lot of time on this. The document was suggested by Big. It is helpful to Big, but we wrote in it language that's helpful to us as well. And again, this is all based on what has become a healthy, long-standing relationship. Big has performed well, which was a significant factor as well. So I would recommend approval of this document from a legal perspective.
And is that pending any final edits by you, or are you good with it down to every last period, dotted I, crossed T?
Well, since you gave me the opportunity to squeeze in final edits, I would ask for it, although I do think it's all but finished. So if it could be approved based on my recommendation with the ability for us to fine tune anything minor that needs to be addressed to get it signed, I would appreciate it. And that's a good question because this has gone through some red lines. The version we're trying to clean up is taking a little bit of work just to get it off with that bow on it.
So you don't have a final draft in your possession as of yet?
Well, I have a final that I sent over to Big that I've gotten an okay on. I'm just waiting to get it back. They did some to it, and I couldn't totally clean it up in Word. That's the issue.
Okay.
It's hard to because there were some red lines back and forth. So I've reviewed it. Felicia, Wade, and Tanya have, and it's good. I just don't have the prettiest version. So if you could approve it with allowing us to finalize it, but you've been told about the major terms. And the big issue, again, was that limitation of liability that's been expanded.
I'd make a motion that we approve the master service agreement between the York County Planning Commission and the Business Information Group, or BIG, conditioned upon a final review and approval by the commission solicitor and director.
I'll second that.
Okay,
And
it's been
signature
moved and
and
seconded.
signed by the director. To be signed by the director.
Are you good with that, Matt?
I am, yes.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other conversation on that item? All right, hearing none, all of those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. All right, I think we did it. I think we got that sucker done by the end of the calendar year.
Oh my gosh.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business, item 10, new business. We have 3 projects from municipalities and 1 county comprehensive plan amendment. We do have some folks in the audience for a couple of at least one of the projects, and I will pause right now to see if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak on the Jackson Township project.
This is James Cornwell. I'm the one who put in for the zoning change for my property. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm prepared to answer any questions anyone might have.
And are you comfortable with the staff recommendation on the report?
I'm not exactly sure what that recommendation is.
Oh, okay. Are you on the Zoom call, and can you see a computer screen?
Yes, I'm watching whatever screen is on the.
Okay, so Wade just scrolled the screen to show that for the Jackson Township zoning ordinance amendment recommending that the municipality adopt the change from rural conservation to agricultural protection.
Yeah, that's good with me.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Cornwall? Okay. I know Sharon spent a good deal of time explaining your plans and had a site visit, so I think from a staff standpoint, we're comfortable as well. I did receive 3 Planning Commission members' reports that they agreed with the staff reports. James Morris, Tom Earp, and Matt Chronister provided their reports that indicated they agreed with the staff reports. Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Solicitor, would you like to go one by one on these projects, or do you think we could do something via consent agenda for the items through to 20-043, 20-044, and 20-045?
This is Walt. I agree with both of them, so you can do either way for me.
I as well.
And does anybody
One
have
motion-
any
One
discussions?
motion addressing both would be okay, Felicia.
Okay, great, thanks. So we would be looking for a motion to approve projects 20-043, 20-044, and 20-045.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All of those in favor of approving the staff reports 20-043, 20-044, and 20-045 signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, motion is approved. Thank you. At
Felicia?
this point, yes,
Who seconded that?
James.
Thank you.
Mhm. At this point on the agenda, we are moving on to item 10D, the York County Comprehensive Plan Amendment. We do have a brief PowerPoint, and I will turn it over to Ann Walco.
Thank you, Felicia. Hi, everybody. I'm here again
Hi,
this
Ann.
month. How's everyone? Last month, I presented as part of the public meeting for this plan to our board and the public Housing and Community Development Plan. I'm here today to give an abbreviated update or an abbreviated version of that presentation, one that we will be presenting to the York County Commissioners tomorrow for their public hearing on the adoption. So I'm going to talk a couple minutes about the Housing and Community Development Plan and remind us of the amendment that we have also on this agenda item to the commissioners to update the comprehensive plan regarding our resource report. So I'll go through this presentation and give the highlights of our housing and community development plan. And we can go ahead with the next slide, Wade. This housing and community development plan is a full update to our 2009 plan, and it does fulfill the responsibilities of the municipalities planning code to meet the current and future needs, housing needs of current and future residents. And it also includes the section for community facilities planning. Next. This is just a snapshot of some of the key terms that we defined in this plan, and these are the operational definitions moving forward. Very key to the conversation is the definition of housing and what is adequate housing, what can be perceived as housing choice, and also looking at, sorry, my phone's ringing, the community, how we define community. So next slide, please, Wade. This is our plan's vision and purpose. The vision can be distilled down very simply to making sure that our plan meets the diverse housing needs of current and future residents, and also looking at this through the lens of planning for future growth, revitalizing our boroughs, cities, townships, and protecting our natural resources, our agricultural resources, and our historic resources. The purpose is, of course, to meet the MPC requirements, and it provides a unified approach to housing and community development planning in the county. Next, please. A main source of data and information for this planning process came from a survey that we conducted back in March of 2019. We surveyed our municipalities and community groups. We received responses back from 24 of our municipalities and 77 organizational responses from community and housing service providers in the county. So that was a very good starting point of our planning process to look at how we could identify the existing needs and challenges we might be facing in the county, what our current strengths are, and what might be emerging as a need or a challenge. Next slide, please. This sort of distills down the key findings of the survey. The main subsets are at the top, the existing and future housing needs. And under that is sort of like a data snapshot at this point in time, some of the current conditions that we are in the county. The middle column addresses the housing needs of our vulnerable populations, and we really targeted in on 3 major areas of vulnerability: our homeless population, our aging population, and those who struggle for whatever other reason to live independently. And the third column looks at housing choice, affordability, fairness, and access. And that pulls in the subsets of those who are facing housing barriers due to disability, income, our current redevelopment approaches in some areas, which is leading to gentrification of certain neighborhoods in certain areas, the coexistence of mental health and substance abuse in the criminal justice system, how all 3 of those factors converge and provide housing barriers to a lot of our population. And again, touching on the housing needs specifically of those who are aging. Next slide, please, Wade. The plan looks at neighborhood and community development, and looking at the community development activities that we have in place, how desirable a neighborhood is, and what the availability and access to adequate and affordable housing is. What it boils right down to is that regardless of the location in the county, your income or your age, safe, affordable, and accessible housing fosters a higher quality of life. I did want to take a couple seconds to look a little bit at some of the neighborhood desirability factors that we looked at. We broke those down into 3 categories: social and economic factors, looks at taxation, the services, municipal services that are available, the existing infrastructure, the environmental factors that affect neighborhood desirability, a lot relating to our hazard mitigation plan, particularly in the area of flooding. Also in the areas of pollution and public services regarding water and sewer primarily. And some of the household environmental factors that can affect the desirability of a neighborhood. We spent some time discussing lead in particular. given the age and the increasing age of a lot of our housing stock in the county. Next page, please. So this sort of summarizes our priority needs. They boil down to really three major overarching issues: access to housing, affordability, and the community development. And where all of those general topic areas seem to converge are around some more specific areas, specifically the senior housing needs, the need for housing for those, like I mentioned before, with criminal justice, mental health, overlapping issues, and also looking at our coordinated assessment and data sharing. Next slide. We then presented some recommendations under each of those, the affordability, access, and community development. Under access, the main goal is to promote creation of safe and affordable housing, promoting homeownership, safety needs, increasing municipal and county capacity, and awareness of affordable housing issues. Some specific actions under that, there were several, but to highlight a few, looking at an inventory, developing an inventory of redevelopment properties, and maintaining a living map so we know what areas might be ripe for redevelopment at any given time. Partnering with developers that might build smaller, more affordable housing projects. Continuing to offer our housing assistance and home improvement programs, and maybe investigating the opportunities for employer-assisted housing opportunities for employees in the County of York. Under affordability, the main recommendation is to raise community awareness and support of housing access through removing the barriers to affordable housing. Again, a lot of specific actions were highlighted, but just to look at a few, looking at an education and awareness campaign to reframe the term affordable. A lot of folks have a very different connotation when referring to affordable housing, and we thought perhaps an education and awareness campaign aimed at the entire community might break down some of those barriers, excuse me. Also looking at continuing to collect and report housing demographic data, housing market data, and looking at build-out scenarios for developable vacant land in growth areas, which may be ripe for current or new development. And also our continuation to look at the impediments to fair housing and where those are located geographically in the county. Next slide, Wade. And our recommendations for community development really combine the idea that looking at sound housing and sound community development planning increase the overall health and quality of life for all of our residents. We pulled in some information from the WellSpan Health 2018 Community Health Improvement Plan, which looked at a variety of factors countywide and how that information can be presented by municipality, and sort of the bottom line was how where you live affects a lot of the issues that are related that are here, looking at housing income, household income, for example, median age. So the graphic on the left is actually taken from that plan, and it just gives you a quick snapshot of some of the data that's included in there. And the tie-in with this is showing that, again, the community development and housing planning ties in with residents' health and overall quality of life when there's a good sound tie between the two. So in order to do that, some of the recommendation action items would be to continue to explore ways that public health and community development can work together. We'll be continuing to direct block grant funds to the appropriate areas and look at ways maybe we can approach rehabilitation and redevelopment on a countywide level. So that, Wade, that'll be the next slide. And that concludes the presentation on the housing and community development amendment to our comprehensive plan. I could take a second here to pause for any questions, and then I did just want to review the resource component amendment that we're also offering to our most current amendment. So does anyone have any questions on the Housing and Community Development Plan in general or in specific? I'm guessing no news is good news, so I can go ahead. Wade, if you would like to please move on to my next slide. This is the slide, this is regarding the resource components that are currently included in our comprehensive plan. They include the community facilities report, the environmental resources inventory, growth trends, and the natural areas inventory. We are including on this amendment to delete these as official resource components of our comprehensive plan, but we will continue to use the information. It will be posted on the YCPC website and would be used as background information and can be updated on an as needed basis. But our comprehensive plan, as you're all well aware, is very voluminous, and these are components that we can maintain the information and keep it updated. It just no longer would need to be required to be part of our county comprehensive plan. So that would be part of the amendment request as well. So this would be a good opportunity now if there's any sort of public comment or any other questions regarding either the Housing and Community Development Plan or our amendment request to remove the resource components from the comprehensive plan.
I have a motion when we're ready.
Do we want to do both amendments, the Economic Action Plan together with the Housing and Community Development, or do you want to do them individually?
We can do them together if you want to move on to the economic plan.
Well, we have a little bit of a problem. We have our York County Economic Action Plan, and we were to have Silas Chamberlain from the York County Economic Alliance present this next series of slides on the Economic Action Plan. So he's not on the call as we anticipated. So I guess I'm looking to Pam or Anne or somebody else that was more closely affiliated with the actual work on the plan to see if they want to walk through these slides without the benefit of having Silas deliver them.
This is Pam. I can give it a try. I'm not real familiar with the slides, but I can do my best.
But
okay, that would be great.
But you're familiar enough with the plan. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be fine, Pam. You'll do great. Go ahead.
Thanks. Wade, you want to skip down a couple slides? So the economic action, well, back up one. The economic action plan was a 12-month planning process that involved creation of a steering committee that we worked with. We began by looking at I just saw a message come through for Silas that he's having trouble getting in. So he's trying to find, he's trying to pick up Wi-Fi somewhere to join, but do you want me to just go ahead then? Just not sure when he'll get in, but anyway.
Just go ahead.
So we involved, established the baseline, then we did a number of interviews, created working groups, and then did a public survey, and there were idea sessions and build sessions to help create the strategies and the action items. With some additional input, we finalized the strategies in August, and then we prepared the plan for the public review process. So next slide. All the types of public engagement that I mentioned in total involved more than 1,000 people that got us some really good input. So that included through the survey, which was on the website. We didn't get as good a response from that as we anticipated, but we did get a good review there, and then involved 40 plus interviews that were government leaders, education leaders, and community and business folks, and then the build sessions, that there were 14 brainstorming sessions that involved over 150 people to help create strategies. Next slide. The vision for the plan is, as it states there, York County is known across the Mid-Atlantic region for its sustainable, equitable, and dynamic economy with accessible pathways to economic prosperity for all. And then our goal is to create equitable pathways to economic prosperity for all while elevating York County's reputation across the Mid-Atlantic region as a great place to work, learn, live, and play. So some other goals that we set forth for ourselves were alignment, kind of bringing everybody in line with to achieve the goals and working as a team to do so, changing up some of the systems that we currently operate under, being able to show our economic process in better ways that we can demonstrate to the public the progress that's being made, and then economic opportunity and mobility, provide access more for the disadvantaged populations, minorities, so that everybody has equal access to economic development in the county.
Pam, this is Wade. I believe Silas was able to join. So Silas, if we want to
pick up from there,
hand it over to you.
Yes, I'm here, and well, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay,
yes, do
sorry.
you want to start with the next slide?
Sure, I'll jump in, and just an apology to everybody. I've been trying to join from home, and that has not worked, and so my good standby is to pull into the parking lot at Rutter's typically, and that didn't work either. So you'll see a slide later about broadband access in York County, and there's proof positive why it's important. So yeah, feel free to advance the slide and I can jump in. So for the EAP, we have broken down all the input and planning into 3 guiding themes that are 3 categories to organize the work, creating opportunities for all, and fueling the engines of prosperity. Within those guides, equity, access, and inclusion. Yes.
Okay, your audio's kind of scrambled coming through, so I'm not sure if this will work or not. We can try it one more time, but at least on our end, it's getting scrambled a little bit.
Okay. I mean, maybe Pam should just walk through it, unless you can hear me clearly now.
You honestly, Silas, I'm cracking up because you sound like you're on some sort of like ether.
This is just Jimmy Buffett there myself.
I'm sorry. Oh, perfect. I will defer to Pam to walk through the rest of this if that makes the most sense.
You all right with that, Pam?
Yeah, like I said, I'll give it a whirl.
All right.
So as Silas was slowly saying, when we looked at all the feedback we received, it fell into 3 kind of basic categories that we listed then as our guiding themes for development of the plan: create opportunities for all people, enhance York County's sense of place, and fuel the economies of prosperity. And the foundational principles that you see there, the equity, access, and inclusion, communication and information sharing, and collaboration and coordination, they are what are used to develop the actions then and strategies specifically to accomplishing those guiding themes as we go. So most of the themes you'll see actions and strategies related to all three of those. Some may only have two of those three, but they share how the plan is developed. Next slide. So within those guiding themes, we have 7 focus areas: the future of industry, workforce development, entrepreneurship, which has a focus on small business support, equity and economic mobility, trying to eliminate barriers to employment, and focusing on diversity inclusion. Quality of place deals with the arts and cultural amenities, and also environmental assets, infrastructure, and the built environment. That's a pretty broad one because the built environment also looks at housing in addition to this typical infrastructure of roads, transit, sewer, and water. Then we look at also the availability of like vacant lands for future industrial and commercial development. And then the final focus area is the rural economy. How can we best help the small boroughs and villages and the rural townships throughout the county? And access to broadband is an important one for helping to improve the rural economy as well. Next slide. So within this focus area of equity and inclusion, we have strategies there is to create pathways to economic prosperity for all York County residents to allow for equal access to everyone. So we're not just focusing on the people that currently have jobs. How can we make travel to existing jobs for people that don't have cars and things like that? How can we market those jobs to better bring those disadvantaged populations into the fold? Next slide. Oh, there's the strategies that I was just kind of talking about. So you can move on because I kind of talked about them. The workforce and economic mobility is to improve the workforce, provide additional training so more people qualify for the jobs that are out there, for better paid jobs, so we have more skilled workers. And the strategies are to expose the workforce to quality job opportunities, enable better collaboration among the workforce system, and to work with employers to remove barriers to employment. The next focus is the future of industries. So we want to ensure quality employment opportunities for all residents. Big emphasis on all throughout the entire economic action plan. Our strategies include better understanding of the diverse needs of growing companies, and to create and expand business support programming for those York County businesses, and especially the small businesses that have been impacted by COVID. Entrepreneurs and small businesses want to boost the number of entrepreneurs in the county and provide them the resources they need to be successful. So want to make entry points and pathways more welcoming and accessible to different groups, and then provide marketing and development assistance for those such as working capital, workforce, and incubator spaces to get those businesses up and running. The quality of place focuses on the arts and the culture and recreation that make York County a great place to live, work, and play. So we want to improve the built environment and support infrastructure that's makes the outdoor recreational access more accessible to everyone, create some funding to support development and marketing of our regional assets, and then build organizational capacity to do placemaking and Main Street development in the smaller boroughs and townships. How to make those areas more inviting to the public, so that not just the public, but more inviting so that they also attract more business development there. In the rural economy, it's building municipal capacity and coordination to increase services and economic opportunity in our rural areas, encourage greater public-private sector collaboration to expand broadband access throughout the counties. And we've heard, a lot of outcry from the school districts and the rural municipalities of this being a big issue for them. And then implement a shared staff model that be hiring a person, not sure exactly where the person would be housed, but that could provide that support for local rural municipalities to help them create the Main Street and the more attractive things to attract businesses. Most of the rural municipalities have very limited staff or only a part-time staff, and they don't have the local capacity to do some of these things to boost their economies. So by having a staff person that could kind of travel from one municipality to another, work with them to identify their needs and provide the assistance to help expand their local economies. Infrastructure and the built environment, it's to support economic growth through new development and redevelopment of the built environment, particularly within our established growth areas that are identified in the growth management plan component of the comp plan. So we want to encourage redevelopment and increase density to make market rate workforce housing more affordable. Create dynamic and updatable inventory of all parcels that are vacant, and make those, market those to developers and businesses that are looking to locate in York County. And then increase collaboration and coordination among public and private sector stakeholders to streamline planning and support within those designated growth areas. So you kind of see a little bit of overlap with this, with the housing and community development plan that Ann talked about, as well as, also supporting our growth management strategies. So it's good to see how these two plans are working together, as well as working to help build implementation of our growth management strategies. So that's that in a nutshell. Any questions regarding the economic action plan?
You did very well, Pam.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about the comprehensive plan amendments that were presented by both Ann and Pam, as well as any questions about the proposal to delete the resource document?
Not I said, Matt.
I just kind of maybe want to add that, we're looking for a recommendation for you to approve the amendment, as well as make a recommendation to the county commissioners to adopt it, the amendment as well. Tomorrow is the county commissioners' public hearing, and then following the hearing, it'll be on their agenda as an action item.
Right. I have a motion if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, I would move that the commission approve the proposed amendment to the York County Comprehensive Plan, including the draft Housing and Community Development Plan dated December 2020 and the draft Economic Action Plan dated December 2020, and the deletion of the resource components, and that we forward the recommendation to the York County Board of Commissioners that the amendment be adopted.
Okay. Did everybody get that motion?
Good job, Mary.
Okay, is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it, Matt here.
Okay, we've got Mary making the motion and Matt making the second that the commission approve the proposed amendment, including the housing and community development, EAP, and the deletion of the resource reports. I'm not capturing the dates, but they're in there as well. And then forward a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners that the amendment be adopted.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, any other questions on that item? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. All right, great. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 11. We have a very brief extent amendment. We had approved several years ago, a three-party grant administration agreement between the York County Board of Commissioners, the York County Planning Commission, and York Building Products. York Building Products owns the York Airport at Thomasville. It's a public use airport that's privately owned. So if the privately owned airport is to receive any kind of federal or state dollars to make improvements to the airport, such as repaving the runway or doing any work around the hangars, if they want to get any of those public dollars, they have to be sponsored by a public entity. York County has stepped in and said they will sponsor those agreements, but they want the Planning Commission to administer those grants. And so that was probably it was 5 years ago that we entered into the original agreement, and we at the Planning Commission administered a grant to repave the runway. That project was completed last fall, and the airport would like to access public funds to also do some paving improvements around the hangar area. And so that would require an extension of the aviation grant administration agreement. And that was submitted to you in your packet. It's just a brief item that extends it another calendar year, or another year, to December of 2021.
Matt here, Felicia.
Sure.
This document is a subset of other documents because there's nothing on this that relates to the aviation or any of these other things. It's sort of this.
Right. The base agreement that was approved 5 years ago lays out the roles and the responsibilities of the county planning commission, and the York Building Products. And in that agreement, which Jeff had originally drafted, right, Jeff? Didn't you draft that one?
I'm looking at it to see, because we have a first, a second. Yes, I did.
Yeah, I thought you did. So
the one I have is dated 2008, the original.
Okay.
But this references a grant application agreement dated November 4th, 2014.
Well,
yes.
There was a First Amendment in 2014.
Okay. So this amendment is referencing a grant application and administrative agreement dated November 4th, 2014. Is that the date of the agreement or not?
Let me double check. I thought it, oh goodness, I've got it right here in this humongo binder.
I'd hate for us to be, you know, setting ourselves up for a fall by using the incorrect date.
Right.
Yeah, there needs to be continuity among these documents, and what little I
Right.
see here, there isn't. I can't tell that.
Hold on.
Sure.
So I have that the first agreement is dated November 4th, 2014.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
I
what,
have
Jeff?
the original signed agreement.
You have the original agreement? Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Okay.
Jeff must have done that one after the 2008 one.
Yeah.
Okay, I would make a motion that we approve the third amendment to the grant application and administrative agreement that was it's dated November 4th, 2014, by and between the County of York and the York County Planning Commission and York Building Products Company, Inc. For a period of 1 year to terminate on November 3rd, 2021.
Second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the extension or the amendment to the grant agreement. Are there any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed signify by saying nay. Okay, thank you, motion carries. The 11B is the approval of the 2021 Planning Commission budget pending adoption of the 2021 county budget. As I indicated in the memo, tomorrow it's anticipated that the York County Board of Commissioners will adopt the draft budget that's been out for public comment for 30 days. And in the draft budget that's been out for public comment for the county, all of the funding requests for general fund, liquid fuels money, and match money for various programs are in that county budget as requested. And I know that for the convenience and the efficiency of the fiscal staff to keep things moving at the end of the year, we have brought our final budget to you for the new year to the December meeting and asked for your approval contingent upon or pending the adoption of the county budget. And since our two meetings, the Planning Commission today and the County Commissioners meeting tomorrow, are so close, we were hoping that you would feel comfortable based on what we've seen in our conversations with the county administrator. We were hoping that you would be comfortable making that motion and adopting the Planning Commission budget pending adoption of the county budget as presented to the public. So there were a couple of minor changes to things that we had already in the budget or things that would have augmented the funding that we received. A couple of the items include the diversity, equity, and inclusion funding. We had that listed under the revenue as a separate line item because we are getting approximately $100,000 from philanthropic agencies in the community to support the funding of that position for the first year. And after speaking with the fiscal office about that, we decided that that would be better positioned under special contracts. The other thing that's changed is we have been approved for $100,000 in community development block grant funding through the CARES Act to support all of the additional staff hours and mileage that we're putting in to support the homeless quarantine program. So those items were added in. The other thing that is not 100% clear is that when you look at the salary line item in the budget, and then you look at the salary adjustments, it looks like we are over-programmed on the salaries, but we do have a couple of hires that aren't coming on until later in the beginning of the year. And so there are some salary expenses that will be realized in the new year. And then we also have talked about doing a compensation study to just make sure that the every 2-year tweaks that we make to our salary scale are still in line with what the market is bearing out. And we wanted to do that this year. We didn't have time to do it given everything else that was going on with COVID and adjusting to all of those changes. But we do have some room in that line item to make any changes based on a compensation study that we expect to have done after the first quarter of the new year. So that is a brief overview of the budget. Otherwise, it's largely the same as what you saw at the September meeting and approved for submission to the county for their consideration. Does anybody have any questions on the budget?
Nope. Yeah, I think you did a good job highlighting it in the memo that you sent. So,
Felicia, I have a comment. Does this dovetail with the new financial software, the way it's outlined?
You know, the order in which the revenues and expenditures are listed in the budget table does line up with our financial reports, but if there's any changes in that formatting as a result of the software, we can adjust that after the first quarter.
Okay. Just want to make sure you don't run into a dead end that you say, oh goodness, I should have done that earlier. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to date, I don't think that will be a problem. I think the components that are being updated are more on the timesheet submission and the specific transportation invoicing that we have to do, as well as other general updates. But if so, you know, our budget table is more flexible than the accounting software, and we can make it work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd make a motion that we approve final budget for the York County planning, the final 2021 budget for the York County Planning Commission, pending the county adoption, which covers all of our numbers dependent on their budget.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Was that Sean?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about the budget? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the budget contingent upon adoption of the 2021 county budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. All right, thank you. The budget is approved. Contingent upon the county's budget.
Right.
The next item is a table of proposed salary adjustments for 2021, and we've given you our salary, our employee roster, and then our 2020 salaries, and then various scenarios for potential increases to the salaries. And I think Wade and the fiscal office and I have worked on those. So the table, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but I would open it up to any questions that you all have. Hearing no questions, is there a motion of some sort?
I'd make a motion to approve the salary adjustments as presented.
I'll second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve them as presented. Any other comments or questions?
You guys are a
Hearing
bargain.
none.
Thanks for everything you do.
Oh, thanks, James. Well, with that, let me call for the vote.
We
all
should
those in
change the
favor?
table, huh?
I know,
Change the
I
table.
I just appreciate the support, and like I said, we've had a very steady staff participation, good attitude, very productive. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. All right, thank you so much for the support.
I'll just say one thing. I've been, and Walt will remember also, but it's very nice to see this list of names that change only whenever we're going to add a program or because someone who has served for a very long time doing a great job has decided to retire, hang up their planning hat or the planning commission hat and move on. Because we remember, don't we, Walt, back in the day when we saw so much turnover, and we don't see it now. And we appreciate our staff.
That is true.
So thanks, guys, for all the good work you do. Under some very difficult circumstances this year, you've certainly proved that our faith in you is well-founded.
Thank you. And for all the staff that are listening in, we'll talk about that at general staff meeting this morning, but I'm glad you said that. There's a lot of staff people listening into the meeting. And I think the other thing that we were able to do, but it wasn't without the support of the Planning Commission, is we've been able to adjust salaries over the years, salary scales, and we could not have done that without the support of the Planning Commission. So, back at you.
Our pleasure.
All right, well, moving on then to the item 11D, appointment of the Nominating Committee for 2021 Planning Commission officers. And just to clarify, we did have a member appointment committee. Walt and I went over this before the meeting, and I'm glad he questioned about this because it does get confusing. We do have a member appointment committee that is Brian Brenneman, Sean Kenny, and Walter Kuhl. And I have one Planning Commission member that I'm trying to finalize their desire to continue serving or not. And we still have an opportunity to get those member appointments forwarded to the county commissioners by the end of the year. They have a final county commissioners meeting on December 30th. So we had Mike Pritchard, Mary Coble, and the third one is Tom Irk. And so we'll be working to get them either reappointed by the end of the calendar year, as all have indicated they're interested, except for one. So with that being said, now we have to worry. Yeah.
Felicia, that one is not included in the three you mentioned. There's a fourth one. Yes?
No.
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 Thank you.
And so then the other thing that we need to do at the end of the year is we need a nominating committee, and it's a committee of 3 people to offer a slate of officers at the January meeting to serve as the officers for the Planning Commission in 2021. So this is a little bit different.
I usually serve that committee, but as I'm one of the ones that's up for appointment, I don't know that it's appropriate that I serve on the officers nomination committee. And I don't even know if I'll be on the board.
I think I've served before. I'm happy to do it again. Sean speaking.
I've never served. I'd be happy to serve.
I've got Sean, I've got James. One more?
Come on, Matt.
I've done it before too. So, all right, you twist some arm, Mary. Uncle.
Are you good with that, Walter? We've got Sean, James, and Matt as our nominating committee for officers for 2021.
That sounds great.
All right. So we'll be in touch as soon as I get everything wrapped up with the appointments. I can let you know who all is eligible to serve, and we just need a slate of officers for the January 2021 meeting. So we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Yep.
And then the other item that we have in the calendar or in the agenda to wrap up the year, we have a list of the meeting dates for 2021. Staff pulled the dates at this point. There weren't any conflicts with any of the holidays that sometimes fall on the Mondays in January, February. There weren't any rogue holidays that float around like July 4th and some of the others. So those are the dates, and mark them on your calendar. At this point, we're going to be advertising them as virtual meetings, but we will also instruct folks that are advertised meetings to check the website. But we would need your approval on these meeting dates before we can move forward with that advertisement.
Matt,
move
I
to
move we
approve.
approve the meeting dates as presented.
I'll second.
Matt and Mary. Been moved and seconded. Does anybody have any questions? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. All right. It sounds like we've got a meeting schedule, we've got a nominating committee, we've got a budget. I don't have anything else on the agenda, Mr. Chairman. Back to you.
Sounds like we've wrapped up business for another year. And with that, I'd say that we're adjourned.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah, be
Happy
safe.
holidays. Yeah.
Stay.
Yes, you too.
Stay in your
Merry
cave.
Christmas.
Yes, I am.